Hey everyone, how's everyone doing out there? Let me switch over to comments here, get that, and I got to finish a comment here, not the answering the argument that's going on in the side chat there, or not. They're not arguing, there's just make the claims who's going to do what. All righty, so all right, where are we at here? we got 4 watching. And so it says, all right, Troop 1351 came in and they did membership renewal. So, and they're in the Survivalist. Hang on, let me look over here. They're in the Survivalist level. And Phelan Clan Wolf came in next, then Crew 1351. And they're chit-chatting back and forth. And Phelan's claiming that Sarah's going to kick some booty today, and one of the members on crew, because I know there's several of them there, putting that Mary D's going to kick some fanny. So we'll see what happens here, and get rid of that thing over there. And so let's shift me up to the corner up here and bring up the story. Boom, there we go. All right, so we ended it with the discovery of a bunch of artwork and gold artwork in the basement of an elderly survivor of the Nazi camps in Germany, and a bunch of gold stored in a crypt in the graveyard or the cemetery. So let's go ahead and unhighlight this here. That's where we ended at, and boom. Let's see here. All right. That is, I really am not happy with. I brought the big monitor in, big TV in here, the 40-inch one. Last night I tried putting it in front of me, and it just didn't work with StreamYard. And even with the just the Word doc over here, Word doc I can read real easy, but it's just making all the toolbars up a bit above so big, and instead of keeping it down and narrow like they're supposed to be, they're like insanely big, and I can't figure out how to make them shrink back down. It did. I took it back in there and hooked it to the other computer in there. Works fine. Something about this this desktop here just kind of stretches parts of it out that it's like, no, you don't need to be that way. So let me see if I can if this is going to help me here. Oh, I want to show it. Collapse ribbon. There we go. Boom. There we go. Get a little bit more room on it there. All righty. Okay. After the artwork was unloaded into one of the still empty cargo containers in one of the barns, Chris and the DHS agents left to head back into town. As Chris pulled out, last in line of the DHS, the Pickles, he stopped and rolled down his window and shouted at Walt, "I'm glad that you're watching this stuff way out here from town. Somebody was bound to ask what we were moving to the facility, but now we can just say whatever it was has been shipped back east. I would stick with that story if I were you." "Sounds like great advice," Walt responded, and waved as Chris drove off. As soon as they were out of sight down the driveway, Walt had everyone move the artwork down into the safe room. Then they moved a quarter of the gold-filled ammo cans into the safe room as well. The rest they put in another cargo container and then stacked empty ammo boxes in front and on top of them. That should keep them safe enough for now. We don't want to I don't want to have to haul all of them back out of the safe room when we go to melt them down into coins. Yeah, that got heavy real quick, Michael groaned as he stretched out his arms and shoulders. You're just getting old, brother. And Walt said, punching Michael in the arm, and took off running. It was a little after 12:30 when Walt was back in his office talking with Joseph, Kurt, and Matt when his sat phone rang. Looking at the caller ID, he smiled. It's your Marines in Arizona, he said to Joseph. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Moore. Walt nodded his head as he listened to Michael. Hang on a second. Let me put you on speaker. I have General Donaldson and Vice President Mitchell in the office with me right now. You want to repeat that? I have Captain and Lieutenant Chapman, retired from Delta Force G Squadron Troop 3, asking for information about them and if they need to re-up. Lieutenant, this is Vice President Mitchell. Are they with you right now? Affirmative, sir. Would you like me to put on speaker? Yes, please. Okay, you're on speaker. Captain Chapman, Lieutenant Chapman, this is Vice President Mitchell. First off, Delta Force is in great shape. That said, if you're willing, I'd like to reactivate you and have you help out there at Camp Resurrection with the training of the new recruits and upgrading the Marines to the extra skills you have. Would we still be Army, or would we have to switch services? I want to keep you as Delta Force for the time being, Matt said. So just have Colonel Houston swear you in, and you'll report to him until such time as we need to have you rejoin them once they have returned from their current duty station. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Vice President, the Chapmans replied. General Donaldson here. Lieutenant Moore. Has Lieutenant Jackson started her special project? Yes, I have, sir. In fact, the Chapman's son is trying out for it, Kimberly answered. How many do you have so far? 4 from Jacob Lake, 14 from Fredonia. This evening we will be addressing a meeting in Kanab, and I'm hoping to get a dozen or so more at the meeting, and maybe more in the next couple of days as word spreads. I'm hoping the Chapmans will also help out with the project in honing Lieutenant Morris and mine skills. Joseph and Matt choked in shock that Archer the Super Scout and Juby Chan the Ninja Girl felt they needed even more training. Walt laughed. Lieutenant, I hope one day to work with you two. That would be one of the greatest honors of my life, sir. Michael spoke up. We thank you for the information on Delta Force, Mr. Vice President, for your time. We'll provide an update on today's events through. Thank you for all you're doing to help stop Heaven's Devils and securing that area of the country. Until this evening, goodbye. Goodbye, sirs. I bet you guys didn't see that one coming. Anyway, over the next couple of days, the meteorite impacts intensified around the world. However, due to the Earth's tilt and the current orbital position, the vast majority of the impacts were south of the 30th parallel. Hang on, I need to add something here. And below the E. Did I spell it right? I did. And below the equator as predicted. It was estimated the total number of impacts between the 10th and 20th parallels would be reduced by 85% for the number that would fall between the 20th and 30th. That number would be reduced by 80% for the number that would fall between the 30th and 35th parallels. That number would drop by 70% between the 30th and 40th parallels. Again, the number should drop by 60% between the 40th and 45th parallels. Adams County was near the 45th parallel. So if 100,000 meters impacted between the 10th and 20th parallels, that meant 15,000 would impact between the 20th and 30th, and that number would impact, and the number would impact between the 30th and 35th would be 3,000. Then only 900 would impact between the 35th and 40th, and 360 between the 40th and 45th. And those were worldwide numbers. With all the impacts they had seen and heard above the 40th parallel, the impacts worldwide Right, that doesn't make sense. Let me think about that. With all the impacts they had seen and heard above the 40th parallels, the impacts worldwide had to be, okay, now I get it. Okay, I forgot to pause at the comma. With all the impacts they had seen and heard above the 40th parallel, the impacts worldwide had to be in the million to 10 million range. That meant that the asteroid had been dragging millions of smaller asteroids behind it when it entered the solar system. Professor Raymond Johansen now theorized that the asteroid was the remnant of a collision between two planetoids in the Oort cloud, and the asteroid was dragging most of the debris with it because of the strong gravitational pull, because of its strong gravitational pull. The nationwide number of I forgot to put a word in there, of impacts for the whole day of October 27th above the 30th parallel was 21. For autocorrect is trying to correct my spelling on me, but it doesn't know how to read. For above the 40th parallel, none in Adams County. That still didn't make up for the day and the night of the 25th. Deputy Sue Myers was getting ready to go off duty when a softball-sized meteorite hit her as she was walking from her patrol car to the office. One of the farmers in Alpine was struck while feeding his sheep. And finally, at the mine, Mr. Pratt was outside talking to two other parents about taking charge of the mine from the kids, as he was calling them, when he was hit in the leg by a golf ball-sized meteorite that shattered his leg and severed the femoral artery. He had bled out before any of the venture crew could get to him and render first aid. On the brighter side, Sarah had taken Elizabeth's jewelry to Joe Maccabeus' shop, and he said he could get a fair amount of gold and silver from it. The jewels, he said, would be best to hold on to for a couple of years. When Sarah showed him some of the 11-ounce Nazi ingots. Hang on, let me put that in there. GOLD, Nazi gold ingots. Max said to leave the jewelry intact for now, and he could mint quarter, half, and 1 ounce coins, no problem. It would take him a month to make the casts and stamps for the coins. Walt sat with his back against the stone fireplace in the grand hall and slowly nursed a bottle of Virgil's Flying Cauldron Butterscotch Beer. They had finished dinner an hour earlier, and Walt's grandmothers, Martha and Rebecca, were fixing strawberry shortcake for dessert. When dinner was over, Walt downed 4 200 milligram tablets of ibuprofen, but his head still hurt. There was a burning behind his eyes, and he felt like a knitting needle had been shoved through the muscles at the base of his skull, and a 5-pound weight was hanging on each end of the needles. Mark looked over at his son for several minutes before speaking. Walt, are you okay? Not to be mean, but you look terrible. I feel worse, Walt groaned. If Sarah hadn't been there helping me with paperwork yesterday and today, I'd be into your bourbon and well on the second bottle. I didn't think that you had started drinking yet, Mark said with more concern now. I didn't, and I don't want to. I just want this headache to go away. Sarah walked over and slid down next to him. I think you're spending too much time on the computer. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a pair of lightly tinted glasses. The blue light from the computer monitor can give people headaches. I got these from the condemned computer store today after you snapped at Judy. Everyone that heard Sarah gasped, and Walt snapped his head to face her. Walt grimaced, instantly regretting doing so. Yeah, I really love the way spell check on here automatically tries to change words, to something that has no context in the English language. What? I didn't snap at her, Walt protested. Twice. When? The first time was about an hour after you got back from meeting with the meeting at the DHS offices, when she asked about changing any of the AWS message. The second time was before I gave you the peppermint and ginger tea with 2 800 milligram ibuprofen tablets. I don't remember any of that, Walt said, looking very confused. Do you remember me asking you to close your eyes and take a 10-minute break if you wanted to sleep in the same bed tonight? Sarah asked very seriously. No, Walt answered, his eyes bugging out. Well, you didn't acknowledge it's not an offer. I need to change that. Ultimatum. There we go. Let me change that. You I did spell it right. Woohoo! No, I didn't. I auto-corrected. What did it change? Oh, okay. It's supposed to be an I after the T. All right. You didn't acknowledge the ultimatum then either. Sarah gave a slight snort, shook her head. You're doing too much. You're trying to do all the paperwork. Most of it should be delegated. You need to hire at least 6 more deputies. There are 2 cops from California and 3 from Oregon. One California cop was a deputy in Humboldt County. The other one was a college district police officer. And make that a capital P on that. Nope. There we go. All right. Still got just 4 people in here. All right. He has family in New Meadows. The Oregon cops were from Tillamook. Hang on. Tillamook City Police. One of them is Jerry Rourke's brother-in-law. How? Walt started. You had me going over the information on all refugees, compiling a threat assessment on them. I did? What Walt questioned. The last 2 days, you've been so intent on reports, requests, and data processing, not to mention guilt over everyone who has died for the lack of preparedness. And of course, Sue dying. You're burning yourself out. If you don't, you're burning yourself out. You couldn't get everyone prepared like we would have liked them to be. And even if you violated security measures, you can't make people look out for themselves. Hang on. It feels good, that warm air blowing on my feet, but it blows up here and causes my eyes to dry out again. Oh, someone else just got Shady Hill Homestead just came in. All righty. Yeah, you can't make people look out for themselves. She's right, son, Mary agreed. You've done more than anyone could have expected of you. And now you're hurting yourself with false guilt, and very soon you'll be hurting your family with the anger this false guilt breeds. And then you'll hurt those in the county by burning yourself out to the point you can't do your job or just don't care to do it. Walt closed his eyes and thought about what his wife and mom had told him. After a few minutes, he spoke. I guess I'm just afraid to let someone else do it, that they won't get it done, and then I'll fail by not doing it myself. He sighed heavily, and Sarah reached out and punched him in the shoulder. All right. I tried Sarah reached out and punched him in the shoulder. All right, I'll try handing more off to others. Walt said. There we go. Rubbing the spot where Sarah had punched him. There we go. Good, Sarah said. I'll take care of hiring more deputies and a couple of office workers to do reports and requisition compiling. Now come get some strawberry shortcake. Why did I put that as capitalized? I don't know. Now come get some strawberry shortcake, Rebecca said. Sarah got to her feet quickly and held out a hand to Walt. As Walt took her hand, the grand hall suddenly lit up exceedingly bright. Sarah dropped to her knees and drew one of her Glock G29FS, and everyone else flinched or ducked. The light lasted for a full 2 seconds, but after only 1 second, the thunder sounded with the window shaking and sounded that the thunder sounded with the window shaking boom. Hang on. Hang on, that's it. Okay, I got it now. Sounded with a window shaking boom and continued to roll on for 15 seconds. All righty. What was that? Well, I know that was lightning, but I've never seen anything like it, Michael asked in awe. All right. Again, the grand hall was brightened as another bolt occurred. Everyone looked out through the windows at the sight of the lightning bolt traveling across the sky, covering many miles before it winked out. The thunder began almost as soon as the bolt disappeared. I haven't seen lightning like that since I was up by the Grand Canyon 20 years ago, Stan said. Those bolts would travel upwards of 100 miles across the horizon. Walt bolted upright and began giving instruction. Dave, radio the mine. Check on them and have them disconnect the antenna where it enters the mine and leave it that way until the storm passes. Then do the same with Bear Cave. Mom, call Redoubt Village on the field phone. No one should go in or out of the fenced area. It could pick up a big static charge and it could kill anyone who touches the fence or the keypad. In fact, they should stay in their RVs. The house lit up again, but the thunder didn't start for 10 seconds. That one was 2 miles away, Thomas said. The first one was right on top of us. Walt continued. Dad, get on the other field phone to the bunkhouses and have them stay inside. Any antennas they have hooked up need to be disconnected. Sarah, call the DHS facility and the Butterfields and have them disconnect their antennas. The house lit up again and the thunder started after 6 seconds. Just as Dave got to the ham radio, it came to life. It was the Smythes calling to check in. Dave relayed their message. They felt the impact from the second thunder strike in their bunker. Their CCTV cameras keep on widening out with each lightning strike. 2 of the Marines have gone topside to do direct observations. Do we know what is going on? Another lightning strike lit the house up. Walt answered for Dave to relay back. No, we don't know. Some strikes are right on top of us. You should disconnect the antenna feed in the hangar. No one should touch the hangar as it could have a static charge in it or it could receive a strike at any time. Hook the antenna back up after the storm has passed. Is Hawk okay? Hawk is fine, as is everyone else. David relayed. We will contact you after the storm, Walt finished. After David finished the relay, Walt said, hurry up, contact the others, then disconnect and tape over the end of the feed line. Hang on. Okay. The Control C over the antenna feed line. There we go. Turning to stand. Being radioed the deputies in office. Get everyone else down to the basement. If they want to go into the safe room, that's fine. Pick 2 to stand watch for the first 2 hours and 2 for the second 2 hours. If the storm is still going by then, Sarah and I will take the third shift, and you can pick 2 more for the fourth. Got it. I go contact your deputy. Stan nodded towards the door. The rain started coming down an hour after the lightning began. At 3 hours, the rain was coming down like a Category 5 hurricane. Now it was like a normal light October rainstorm. The lightning had petered off as well, just to one flash every 10 to 15 minutes. The lightning flashes were not nearly as large and as bright as they were in the first hour, nor was the thunder as loud. It was 6.5 hours later that the storm started to ease up. Walt and Sarah sat in one of the suspended wooden porch swings, wrapped up in an oversized comforter, and now watched the pleasant storm wind down. Walt, Sarah broke the silence. The asteroid has been gone for almost a week, and the earthquakes are all but gone. Most of the volcanoes have stopped their eruption or are just trickling lava out. She paused for a second as she lined up her thoughts. Granted, the moon is closer to the Earth, and we're going to see higher tides around the world. With all that has happened to the Earth and solar system, what are your thoughts on this storm? Could we be in for more of them? As Stan likes to say, that is a $64,000 question. Walt shifted his position and pulled Sarah closer. I would like to say it was an aberration, one that we may only see once in a while over the next couple of years before it goes away. But with all the dust particles in the atmosphere from the volcanoes and the meteors exploding up there, debris thrown up from meteor impacts, and the stronger pull of the closer moon, I don't have any idea. Professor Johansson might have a couple of theories he's working on. And then there's next year. What about next year? Sarah asked a bit puzzled. What if there are other asteroids pulled from the asteroid belt but moving slower? Bigger asteroids, ones that will reach the Earth orbit when we come around again. What if the asteroid gets caught in the sun's gravity field and is thrown into an orbit that brings it across Earth's orbit in 5, 10, or 20 years? We won't have recovered enough to spot it. It could catch us totally unaware, Walt sighed. There are just too many possibilities to sort out right now. I have a headache. Now I have a headache. I need to learn when to keep my mouth shut, Sarah grumbled and snuggled closer to Walt. Oh, that kicked that. Interesting. Okay. Let me take a quick look, see. Make sure. No, I'm going to change this up. Or into the safe room if they want. Yeah. All right, that should help this a little bit. Let's see, did it? No, it didn't. Dang it. Trying to figure out how, because basically I got there because of the page break. Let's see the nothing there. Comma. Uh, all right. I'm trying to figure out how to looking at some of the things here. A-R-E. That did it. Our whiting out. Now we shorten that down. Did that shorten that up? That moved. Yep. Okay, that did it. That got rid of that big blank page. I hate big blank pages. Either I got to fill in a bunch of stuff or I got to delete stuff. But fortunately, I just changed verbiage a little bit to get it to fit in. All right. All right. We're into the last subchapter of chapter 2. Thursday, October 28th, 2037. The 7th full day of the passing. The dream. Okay. Sarah eyed the 7 men facing her with an unusual calm, such as she had never before experienced. Her right hand hung onto the saddle horn hung onto the horn of the saddle resting on her right shoulder. Her left hand was limp at her left side. Harrison Marston stood in the middle of the group, laughing softly and shaking his head slightly. What are you going to do? He gestured out with his right hand as he continued on. That old pistol of yours only has 6 shots, and there are 7 of us. All you'll accomplish is to get yourself dead. Sarah shifted her weight slightly to her right foot and picked up her left foot. I used to watch an old movie with my dad. There was this one line in it that seems real appropriate right now. As she spoke, she slid her left foot up behind her right knee and caught the leading edge of her duster with the spur and pulled it back around her and brought it up to her left hand. The main character was facing off a bunch of bad guys that just tried to kill his idol, Jack Beauregard, with a bomb. Anyway, he told him that Jack could draw and shoot his revolver 3 times before the other guy could even draw once. The other, yeah. She took hold of the corner of the duster as she lowered her left foot and brought the corner of the duster in front of her and tucked it into the gun belt, and then slid it back, catching the left on here, LEAD, the leading left edge of the duster with it to expose a second revolver in a cross draw fashion. Marston stopped laughing, and his face and his smile faded away as his eyes focused on the second gun. Then he realized her resolve not to back down. There's still more of us than there are of you. There's still more of us. There are still more of us, and you're not fast enough to get before we kill you. Before Sarah could utter a response, one of Marston's men spoke up with a quivering voice. Boss, I think she is fast enough to get most of us. Bullshit. She's just a girly. Sarah didn't even realize that she'd made the decision to draw until she heard the first shot. Her right hand had let go of the saddle horn, dropped with unearthly speed to the ball and cap pistol. What the heck? Oh. The ball and cap revolver hanging in the Western quick draw holster at her side. Her thumb caught the hammer of the revolver and cocked it as she drew the hammer from the holster using only her thumb. The old style revolver rolled up into firing position. Hang on. As it cleared the HOLST holster. And her last three fingers wrapped around the smooth wooden butt grips. And her index finger squeezed and held the trigger. The first bullet caught Marston in the Adam's apple and blew out two vertebrae from his neck as it exited. Sarah's left hand flashed across, fanning the hammer of the pistol, sending a bullet into each of the heads of the three men standing to the right of Marston's still standing body before anyone had a chance to move. The saddle is now starting to slip from Sarah's shoulder, so she tossed the revolver to the left where her left hand wrapped around the butt and the thumb rolled over the hammer, cocking it, and her finger tightened on the trigger, sending the fifth bullet flying into the groin of the man on the far left of Marston's now falling body. As her right hand, I've got an extra word in there. Don't need and. As her right hand grabbed the horn of the saddle and pulled it back up on her shoulder. The man next to Marston was starting to bring up the barrel of his M16. Was starting to bring the barrel of the M16 up. Got to say what the words are in order there, right? As Sarah thumbed back the hammer and snapped off the last shot of the old ball and cap revolver. As much as she had practiced shooting left-handed, it was still awkward cocking the single-action revolver. As such, the action threw her aim off to her left. As fate would have it, this was a good thing. Instead of hitting the man in center mass, the bullet caught him in his right forearm, shattering the bone and causing him to lose his grip on the weapon. The M16 fired a three-round burst in Sarah's general direction. The first hitting the ground in front of her left boot. The second one further to the shooter's right as the gun climbed from the momentum and recoil and passed several inches to the outside. outside of her knee. The third bullet went even farther away from Sarah, as her right hand was again in motion, drawing the other revolver from the cross draw holster. This was a modern reproduction of the Colt 36 caliber Navy revolver, chambered for .357 Magnum and double action. The last man was the one who told Marston that he thought Sarah was fast enough to take most of them. His fear had caused him to hesitate, and she fired 2 shots at him, one hitting him in each shoulder, making his arms useless. Sarah spun the revolver quickly, placed it back in its holster, reached up and caught the saddle horn before it slipped completely from her shoulder. As she started walking towards Marston's life-ebbing body, she reached across and dropped the old ball and cap into the holster hanging from. She stooped when she was standing over Marston and gave his head a nudge with the toe of her boot. His eyes came open with a shocked stare. "I got all 7 of you, and 2 of you are wounded, and 2 of your wounded men are still. And I have 2 of your wounded men still alive to question. Your spine has been severed, so that's why you can't move, and you're slowly drowning in your own blood." She smiled wickedly at him. "The group you sent out to take out Walt and the DHS agents, they ran into a Marine sniper team while they were trying to set up for their attack. The group had no survivors. Neither were there any survivors from any of the other groups you sent to Walt's ranch. So you see, all of your perverted plans have been stopped. And just to make sure, I will be questioning the 2 men I wounded here." Sarah pulled out a fish fillet knife. "When I start cutting off things they really want, they'll tell me everything. Then I will go after your family and friends just to make sure I got all of the information I need." Marston's eyes widened in fear and surprise as he tried to say no without any success. "Then I will take all of their weapons away from them and let everyone know they are defenseless. I'm sure there are more than a few of those you have stepped on who would love to pay them a visit." Sarah spat in Marston's face and turned and walked over to the 2 wounded men. "Who wants to play? Let's make a deal," she said with an evil grin that sent chills down the 2 wounded men's spines. "I do," came from behind her. Sarah spun around, and all she could see was a blurry shadow figure, and everything went black. The next thing Sarah knew, she was sitting upright in bed in a cold sweat. "Holy crap!" she exclaimed as she gasped for air in big gulps. "What's wrong, Sweetums?" Walt asked as he rolled over to her, reaching out and patting her thigh. Gulping air, Sarah responded, "I just had a very weird and scary dream." "You want to tell me about it?" Walt said in a sincere, soft voice. Sarah laid back down and snuggled into Walt. "Damn, a little gnat just flew in my eye. And it stings. Ouch." All right. There we go. Snuggled into Walt, took a deep breath, and began to relay to him the details of her dream. The former members of the former members of the venture crew that were now Idaho Rangers took it upon themselves to make and serve breakfast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday each week. They did it scout style with a serving line that everyone would grab a plate. And would be served by the Rangers. Diane Thomas went to the front door and called for the children to come, for the children outside to come in for breakfast. The younger of the Ahern and Thomas children came running in the house excitingly with rocks in their hands as everyone was circling up for breakfast prayer. "What do you have there?" Mark asked as he spotted the objects in their hands. "Asteroid maggots," they said a little too excitedly. "Asteroid magnets," Mark repeated. "Where'd you get those?" "Out by the old windmill," Ryan Thomas answered. Yeah, the one that is all bent over where it got hit by these. Tommy Ahern agreed. "That place feels funny," Lisa Ahern added. "I don't like it." Randy Cassidy stepped to the middle of the circle. "Prepare yourselves in the manner you are accustomed to," he said, and removed his hat, and then seeing everyone back, the blessing on the food. Man, there's about 6 gnats just suddenly came in here flying. Oh boy. That's what this warm weather is doing. The ground freezes for a little bit and it thaws, and the gnats are going, "Oh, it's time for us to hatch." And then they're buzzing around underneath the patio cover by the back door. When the grandkids come in, they're buzzing around by the door. So all the gnats come flying in. The grandkids aren't thinking about waving them away, even though I keep telling them to. All right. And he said the blessing on the food. Everyone lined up to be served, and Walt walked over to the 3 children and bent over to them. "Can I see those for a minute?" "Sure, but be careful. They'll pinch your fingers really hard," Ryan said as he handed his over to Walt. Walt took each of the quarter-sized magnets and looked them over and set them on the floor about 18 inches apart. Each one was oddly shaped and different from each other. He carefully started nudging one of them closer to another, and when they were about 9 inches apart, they flew together with a loud crack. Then he started moving the third one closer, and when it was about a foot away, it suddenly flew to the others. Walt picked them up and struggled to pull them apart. "These are kind of dangerous, aren't they?" he asked them. "Yeah, that's why we're trying to keep them away from each other," Tommy answered. "Why don't I put these up on the fireplace mantle while we eat? Then after breakfast, you can show me where you got them." "Okay," Lisa answered quickly. "They are a little scary anyways." Ryan and Tommy reluctantly nodded in agreement. After breakfast, the 3 children led Walt and some of the adults to where they found the magnets. They passed the barn. As they passed the barn, Walt reached in and grabbed a shovel and a rake, then trotted to catch back up with the kids. "Whoa," Sarah exclaimed as she came around the corner of the barn. The windmill pump that supplied water for the cattle trough was bent over on itself and twisted with all the paint burnt off. There was a burn line from the base of the pump to a 6-foot diameter area that was blackened with several lumps in the middle of it. "That's where we found the asteroid magnets," Ryan said, pointing to the blackened area. Walt looked at the site and studied it. He noticed the structure of the windmill was not just discolored, by the paint being burnt off. It was melted in several places. The weather vane on it had come off and was lying on the burnt patch that led to the mill, that led from the mill to the blackened area. The blackened area, it was several lumps. It was more than melted. It was it was partly burnt away. He walked closer to it and nudged it with the toe of his boot. Seems the lightning strike created a rare earth magnet, Walt said as he examined the area and poked it with the rake. Several small rocks stuck to the rake as he moved it back and forth. As he continued to move the rake, more rocks stuck to it. That stuck to the rake than did on the last pass. This is getting hard to move, Walt said as he pulled the rake away from the blackened area. Mary spoke up. Well, there's no, I can't pronounce the word. I'm sorry, I actually put the right words in there, but neodymium around here. California is the only place that has significant enough supplies that they can mine it in the U.S. But samarium and cobalt are found here in Idaho. Everyone looked puzzled at her. Those are the minerals needed to make common rare earth magnets. Are these going to be a problem for us? Walt asked his mom. Just build a big fire on top of it and reheat like a forge. The heat causes them to lose their strength. The more heat, the weaker they got. The weaker they get. A bunch more of these things here. I'll get a fire going before lunch, Mark said. Get Kurt and some of the, hang on. I got to write something down here. Because I think I made a mistake here coming up, and I want to make sure I have, write this down here. All right, so this Kurt is C-U-R-T. Let me do a search for Kurt, C-U-R-T. One result. Okay. Let me look. I'm going to do a little thing here, guys, so you're going to see stuff pop up here. Against the wind. All right. Yeah, when I changed the size here in the new version of Microsoft Office, I changed the size of the spreadsheet here. I mean the zoom. All it does is change this, the field. It doesn't change the stuff up above at all. Okay, so come over here. I'm going to just go ahead and make it big because this stuff, this here should be changed in size too, and it's not. Got to find out if there's a way to make it change with this, the stuff in the spreadsheet. All right, so I'm going to go Control F. Come on, Control F. C-U-R-T. Find next. Okay, Kurt's not listed here. R-A-N-C-H. Rancher. But Butch is the head ranch hand. Aha! I thought so. So close this so it's Butch. And we will then make this back to where it was and put it down below and change Kurt to Butch. they don't get, Butch doesn't get mentioned that often. That's why I made a mistake in putting Kurt in there. All right, and save. All right. We need to keep them involved and updated on what's going on. When they were almost back to the ranch house, Walt spotted a line of Humvees coming up the long driveway and picked up his pace. At about 7 miles long, the driveway was more of an access road for the ranch. There was a Y about a quarter mile away from the ranch house that led to the bunkhouses that the ranch hands were in. Let me get some water here, I think. That the ranch hands used. That the ranch hands used. The mine, Redoubt Village, and Bear Cave, although the last half mile of that road was more of an off-road dirt path, and the other dirt roads that served the rest of the ranch. Sarah pulled out a digital binocular and zoomed in on the Humvees. Sal and Jesse are in the first one. John is in the turret of the third one. Cindy is shotgun in the fourth one. That means the VP is here, Walt said, picking up his pace yet again. I don't think it's a social visit, Sarah said as she caught up with Walt. I think you're right, he groused. The only one secure communication satellite had survived. That had survived the meteor shower. Oh, okay, only one. Sorry, I had it backwards. I was reading it wrong at the front. That's what screwed me up. Okay, only one secure communication satellite had survived the meteor showers, comma, and it was only in position to provide coast-to-coast communication coverage from 10:30 hours Mountain Time until 1300. Partial coverage was longer depending on what locations were using it. Walt was right. The vice president was in the Humvee, as was both General Smythe and Kathy, as well as General Donaldson and Kathy in a reinstated capacity as Master Gunnery Sergeant Dyer. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go take care of something real quick here. I'll be back really quick. Go ahead and chat with each other, and I will be back in a little bit. Alrighty. 4 comments. You guys are mean. I had to go get some protein, some cheese to snack on here. I was starting to feel a little lightheaded. I've been up since 3:30. All right. Let's see here. The purpose of the visit was that DHS Secretary Daniels was going to brief Vice President Mitchell, Sack Davies, and the generals and Walt on the current situation of the country after the devastating meteorite impacts. Since Walt had a satellite connection at his house, Chris suggested they meet there. For the next hour, they listened as each state was covered regarding its current condition as far as lives lost, food and water supplies, any functional local, county, or state government. The picture was grim, to say the least. The vast number of small meteorites that impacted across the United States had taken a greater toll on all levels of government than even the worst case scenario that anyone put forth as even. Sorry. Let me see where I should have put a comment in. Had a greater toll on all levels of government that anyone in all levels of government that even the worst case scenario change this one to that's what was throwing it off the most. All right, so let's try reading that again. The vast number of meteorites that impacted across the United States had taken a greater toll on all levels of government than even the worst case scenario which anyone had put forth as even possible. It was only in small cities and towns that had taken preparedness to heart that any form of government was still functioning. Adams County was the most functioning county outside of, and I can't pronounce that county in Maine, Piscatagus, Piscataquis. I can't pronounce that. Where the Baxter State Park is located. The second Colorado site near Grand Junction was hit by a football-sized meteorite, and teams say that it was a total loss. A football field-sized meteorite, yeah, big one. All major cities that had survived the quakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes and their ashfall were hit by meteorites, and now hang on here, a lot of fires raging through them. Areas of major cities that were still still standing. I keep getting this weird pop-up here when I'm looking at this screen. I'm not sure what the heck's going on. Getting this blue little thing popping up over here. That's all I see out of the corner of my eye. And a lot of fires raging through them. Areas of major cities in a lot of cases were lawless and a battleground between local gangs, both old and newly formed, and citizens trying to survive, and the remaining law enforcement officers and former military that joined with them out of mutual survival need. In some cases, the fighting is fierce and numbers on all sides are dwindling as time progresses. They were all shocked at that conditions had deteriorated so fast. The list of cities too dangerous for federal teams to enter to assess and offer aid was long and growing. Not that the federal government was able to do much helping at the moment. Most of the military had been relocated to north of the 45th longitude, with the majority of those being in Alaska. 95% of the military remaining in the continental 48 states were on bases that were significantly damaged by meteorites, such as Minot Air Force Base, which had several low-angle meteorites strikes that plowed paths through storage buildings, through storage in other buildings. The commissary and the entire exchange building were caught in the path of one of the meteorites. Were caught in the path of one meteorite, leaving nothing but burning debris in its wake. Death rates were over 55%. Other casualties were upwards of 25%. The military units in Alaska would not be returning until spring. They would bring seed and fuel for farming equipment. At least that was the plan. Walt was beginning to have doubts if they were going to go unscathed through this winter. It seemed that the fates were working overtime to undo all that they had done in preparation for the recovery. Only the Navy was, so far, looking like it would be able to do what was planned ahead of time if needed. Sarah looked around the room, and where earlier that she saw faces of hope and promise, now she saw concern, fear, and dread, even a little despair. The looks only got worse as the briefing continued. All right. In the Northwest, there was a mix of conditions. Most of Washington, Oregon, and Western Nevada and Northern California were covered by a layer of heavy ash from the Cascadia subduction zone volcanoes that erupted in those areas. Coeur d'Alene was also covered with ash and was reporting riots and clashes with refugees from Spokane and the areas to the west. The area, oh, sorry, hang on, I need to put something in here. In Idaho, the area from Rexburg down to Pocatello was getting a thick layer of light ash blowing in from the Cascadia subduction zone and the western volcanoes. Rexburg itself had sustained major building damage from the Yellowstone eruption. Hang on. S-H-A-K, shaking, but no ash from it. Idaho Falls was a little better off, but still. Blackfoot was fared a lot better, and its major problem was a lot better damage and ash wise. And its major problem was the rioting and looting by refugees wanting more than the county was providing. Once rioting started, it spread quickly. Locals rallied to the support of the police and sheriff's deputies. The loss of life among the rioters was nearly 100%. Rioters were learning that just about all Idahoans own guns and were not afraid to use them. Pocatello and Twin Falls were in a trough area across the bottom of the state, and we're getting a lot of ash from the Cascadia subduction zone and the western volcanoes. Yeah. This continued down into northern Utah to the Provo area. There were lots of reports of those attacking Mormons' families being hunted down and killed in their homes, many of which were highly exaggerated. Their battle cry was, "Remember Governor Boggs," referring to his Executive Order 44, known as the Extermination Order, where Governor Boggs illegally ordered the killing of every Mormon in the state. That was Missouri state of MOU. That's wrong. Let's see if it'll give me a correct spelling of it. No, Missouri. No. Oh, one more way to find it. MI. Okay, there we go. MI SS OU R. Boom. There we go. Many non-Mormon refugees not realizing that those few who were taking this action. All right. Many non-Mormon refugees not realizing that those few who were taking this action So I got to figure out how to make this sound right. Okay. Make this action comma. Uh, was doing so only against those stealing from and killing Mormons. All right. Okay, I think I got it worked out here. Many non-Mormon refugees uh, uh, who, not realizing those few who were taking this action, were doing so only against those stealing and killing Mormons, tried to flee the area. Most would die from exposure before the end of the year. Okay, that makes a little more sense now. All right. In Montana, Missoula and Helena were reporting a good foot plus layer of light ash, most of which had been washed away. However, there were small gangs raiding stores, schools, and neighborhoods. A certain faction of the population was also attacking their neighbors who had prepared by stocking up on supplies, while they had not. A lot of those were being shot by the homeowners, and those that got away when identified were hunted down and hung from trees in front of their own homes. Butte was worse off, being closer to Yellowstone. It suffered heavier building damage from the shaking of the eruption and got more ash from it. Other information was sketchy and some conflicting. Bozeman, Billings, and all the towns to the east were heavily buried in ash upwards of 3 to 5 feet. Strong winds from the west carried most of Yellowstone's ash eastward. This, hang on. Eyes are gunking up and drying out and turning into like paste. Stuff out of my eyes there, right? Bozeman, Billings, and all the towns to the east were buried heavily under upwards of 3 to 5 feet. Strong winds from the west carried most of Yellowstone's ash eastward. It continued into the southern three quarters of North Dakota, all of South Dakota, Minnesota, and lightly over Wisconsin, which was mostly flooded, but when the tsunami surge pushed up from the Gulf of Mexico into the Great Lakes, meeting the water that came through New York to into Lakes Ontario and Erie. The northern half of Wyoming was also under a heavy layer of ash. Casper was moderately covered with ash, but they were having trouble with gangs and refugees stealing supplies and killing residents. They also suffered a large number of building collapses. Ash from the eruptions of Mount Desearo and Orfano Butte covered Cheyenne in southern Wyoming down to Pueblo, Colorado, and western Nebraska and Kansas. As a side note, Secretary Daniels mentioned that Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec had been submerged by flooding. Ontario had heavy flooding in parts of Nunavik and Manitoba had been flooded too. At the end of the briefing, Secretary Daniels addressed Walt and said that he had a spreadsheet on the council whiteboard in WebOC and asked Walt if he would look it over with those there and see if he could come up with some options. Then he asked every other site to log off so he could talk to Walt privately. After a few seconds, the tech behind Secretary Daniels said that everyone else was logged off. Then Secretary Daniels asked Walt if he would consider accepting the appointment as director of the U.S. Federal Marshal Service. The previous director and his deputy director were in the second Colorado site near Grand Junction and died there. Walt said he'd have to think it over. To Secretary Daniels, this was much better than the flat no Walt had expressed when asked to be a deputy federal marshal. He took it as a sign that Walt was seeing that his county was well taken care of and he could move on to help. So Secretary Daniels said that was good enough and ended the briefing. Ow. Just suddenly got a muscle spasm in my ankle. I don't know why. I wasn't moving or standing on it here. Just suddenly started hurting. When the briefing ended, Sarah reached over and connected her laptop to a loose cable line on Walt's desk. She pushed the source selection button for the monitors, which brought up her laptop screen for everyone to see. She had been taking notes during the briefing, and now she was putting them up for everyone to see. Thank you, Sarah, Vice President Matt Mitchell said. I'm beginning to understand why they are recalling all retired military personnel. They, until they come back in the spring, we're going to be very short of military personnel. Military units that can respond to any foreign incursions, Joseph said softly as he was going over the numbers from the briefing. Law enforcement is going to be very hard pressed until mid-spring if they survive the winter die-off, Chris said. With 20 states being washed clean or very heavily flooded, 7 were more than halfway flooded out on the East Coast, and those took some heavy meteorite hits. 3 flooded or buried by volcanic ash on the West Coast. 5 others receiving heavy ash in the Southwest. Chris took a breath. 6 of the plain states are flooded on the east side and getting ash on the west side. 5 more are flooded on their west side. He stopped and he took a breath. Alaska came out the best, even with all of their volcanoes. Then Montana. Even with all their volcanoes. Then Idaho, Maine, Utah, and believe it or not, Hawaii. The rest of the Rocky Mountain states, if they survive the ash, will recover. The Western Plains states also, but they can move in the flood areas to get away. Hang on. if they can move into the flooded areas to get away from the ash if it continues to decrease. Hang on. I know I'm packing information in there, but it's not coming out right. The western states also, if they can move into the as they dry to get away from the ash. And if it continues to decrease as it has been. There we go. That corrected that stuff. All right. Then they can plant crops and rebuild quicker than the Southwest states. Then he shook his head. It's what the survivors are going to do that worries me. Those that don't know how to garden will turn to stealing and killing to survive. If they kill off the farmers, then it will take a lot longer to recover. Over at Walt and halfway smiled. Nancy and I have been reading your books. We've been reading your books. We can only hope that some of the washed clean areas that had some of the washed clean areas had the biker gangs in them, Sarah said under her breath, but loud enough that everyone heard. Or at least they were in the areas that got unexpectedly heavily flooded, Kathy added. That would be nice if they did it, but I have a feeling that they, like rats, have found a way to survive, Walt said. Then he turned to Chris. What are your real thoughts on law enforcement? I think you need to take the director appointment with some required changes to the structure of the Marshal Service. Like what, Walt asked. Take it back to the Old West. Chief Marshal, not director. Western attire, not to be over courthouse security. Have them set up a federal bailiff service for that. You're just in charge of hunting down the bad guys and bringing in their bodies. I'm for that, Sarah almost shouted. Heck, I might even sign on as a deputy. Might, she added quickly. What do you think, Matt? Walt asked the vice president. Matt sat in silence for a couple of minutes thinking. Then he spoke slowly and deliberately. I am not an advocate of violence. I would like to see peaceful resolutions whenever possible, but these are not normal times. We are dealing with extreme conditions that have made many become killers. And unless they realize that there are lawmen out there dealing with the killings, they will continue to do so. Therefore, justice for victims will need to be swift and accurate if we are going to stem the tide that will soon try to wash over us. He paused for several seconds, then leaned forward towards Walt. I think you are a good man for the job, but are you the best? I don't know. But you would bring honesty and integrity to the position, and you could make the hard calls in what your deputy marshals would have to do. Matt sat back. Oh, we had somebody come in just for a second and go back out again. Must have been another one of those trolls. They saw I was live and go, oh, let's go see if we can get on his panel and expose ourselves. And the guy came in, it's like, oh, wow, no, we don't want to deal with this. Matt sat back and spoke, and Chris spoke quickly. You should write up an outline of what you think the new Marshal Service should be like, their duties, who they answer to, I would have them removed from the Department of Justice. There's too many educated idiots there that have no idea what it is like out here dealing with the real world. They would be over, and they would be over you otherwise. I can start writing it up tonight, Sarah volunteered excitedly. Then her watch started beeping. But right now I have to go meet Jason and his father at the tribal council. She started typing fast on her laptop. There, I just copied my notes to your computer, she said to Walt. Quickly closing and disconnecting her laptop, Sarah stood up and started to leave, but stopped and turned to Kurt and Candace. What military aircraft 100-foot runway, and how much would it need to be lengthened for a C-130 or C-5 to operate from here? What are you thinking? Kurt asked. Get a couple ground attack aircraft, some cargo planes here to go get supplies from bases that have been decimated. Relocate a bunch of food and personnel that are still alive and equipment here. She turned to Joseph and Kathy. Same thing. You're going to need a way to get the troops that you are going to train to where they are needed. Then she turned back to the door and headed out. What do you think's in her mind? She's afraid that groups like the biker gangs might raid a National Guard armory or a compromised military base and get some Humvees, heavier armored vehicles. So she wants a couple A-10s and ground attack helicopters and UAVs with a command trailer, Walt said nonchalantly, and some cargo planes to get a couple dozen Bradleys brought in with full supplies and a couple hundred GAU 19s with a couple thousand tons of ammo. Walt saw shocked faces on everybody's face and added, she wants to rain hellfire down on anyone who threatens us. Personally, I think that might be overkill. But that'll do the job, Kathy snickered, but then straightened up. Seriously, though, we need to get Humvee, Strikers, Bradleys, as many Flyer 72s as we can. We're going to be training new replacements for Forcon. We need the equipment. To train them on that they will use. And a couple of T6 Texan trainers, Kurt added, so we can get some pilots trained too. Better add a couple of CH-53K King Stallions and V-22 Osprey to the list, Joseph said. That way we can move long distance as needed. And land without a runway. Guys, Walt interjected. Have you figured out have you figured out where you're going to house your new recruits? I have requested a company of CBs to be moved here ASAP. One of Lonnie's neighbors passed away 2 days ago. He had 6 sections of land. His widow came to us and told Lonnie she was going up to McCall to her sister's place and offered to sell us the land for 2 steers every month. We bought it immediately. What did he die from? Walt asked. He was having an argument with another neighbor who was trying to dam up the stream flowing through his property and had a heart attack. Oh, old man Brooksby, I got that report. Is the neighbor still trying to dam off the stream? Not anymore, Kathy smiled. I went and talked to him as a deputy and told him that Mrs. Brooksby sold the property to the Marine Corps. And if he wanted to act like an idiot, then they would just take his property under eminent domain and reimburse him bottom dollar. He ran out and took the dam down. I think I got it. No, I missed it. Stupid gnats. Nice. Well done, Walt said. Then he turned to General Donaldson. Joseph, any idea when we can expect Seabees? I was told by Veterans Day we'd have the first 2 squads, if not sooner. Those that have families will be coming with them, and they will be staying here for the next 2 years. Good deal. I would push hard to get them here ASAP to start housing to handle cargo planes. Walt smiled, knowing that families would be a stabilizing factor for the Marines. And CBs. We have several families that are looking for work for food and shelter. Stop by the office and get a copy of their work history. You can pick those you want to help build the camp. By the way, have you picked the name yet? Camp Tun Cavern, or Tun Cavern, after where the first Marines were recruited, Joseph said. Has anyone have thoughts on recovery efforts before winter sets in? Matt asked. Candace spoke up. For civilians, about all we can do is provide moral and informational support. The same is true for military personnel. We could move a few here, but we need to make sure that we relocate what supplies they had there with them. Those bases that got hit by meteorites know what they need to do right now. Those bases that got hit by the meteorites know what they need to do right now as far as burying the dead and rebuilding shelters for the winter. What the Joint Chiefs need to do is to have daily news broadcasts and be forthright with them. No hiding the hard facts, but be sure to provide positive information at the beginning and the end. Walt jumped in. I agree on the broadcast, but we need to have local areas input too. they can somehow send the government video footage that can then be rebroadcast. That might help with morale and recovery efforts. Damn, I'm tired. All right. I'll be back in a minute here, guys. I got to go see if I can get something to wake me up here. All right. Got a little snack. We need to see if any FCC personnel are still around and if they can come up with a way to set up a national broadcast system, both in digital and old-fashioned analog, Joseph suggested. That's a great idea. something along the lines of Channel 3 or Channel 4 that most cable boxes run on. That way, the TVs that are still on those channels might pick up the broadcast a little bit, Matt said. I think we, Kathy said, pointing around the room, here need to concentrate on getting supplies and lone surviving military personnel here. We need to get them here to help protect the farms and the crops in our area. Yes, other areas might be able to get food production up this spring, but we don't know if they have farmers to do it. We don't know how the rest of the country stands farm-wise. We have farmers here. The rest of the government needs to focus on finding and supporting and protecting farmers elsewhere. The Navy can provide protect the borders from other countries. If any try to come here by sea, the Air Force can protect us from major land incursions, and the Army can help. We have to protect the people around here and further out as we expand control, like they're doing at Jacob Lake with Camp Resurrection. We have to set up small bases to show areas of control and act as base of operations for marshals, and get the Army working setting up smaller bases like the old fort systems of the Old West, of the Wild West. How many Army personnel are there left in the 48 state? Joseph asked. I'm not sure. I know they were working hard to build barracks in Alaska since the spring. And Marine personnel, a lot more. They're functioning as security for most of the COOP sites. Matt replied. There's a reserve unit of the 4th Marine Air Wing in Utah. They also have members of the Aviation Command and Control Team there that I know of. They were one of several units to act as coordinators for returning military personnel. But I'm not sure how they have weathered the meteors. I do know we have lost 5 of the Aviation Command and Control units, 2 in Colorado, 1 in Nevada, 1 in Washington, and 1 in Kansas. Why didn't any of the joints chiefs? Hang on, got to capitalize that. Any of the Joint Chiefs tell us any of this? Joseph. But I'll talk to the president about it in, look at his watch, about 30 minutes. I know that our plan flies in the face of a whole bunch of laws, sir, but if things are as bad as the briefing said, and I bet they are really a lot worse, this is what is needed to help the country get back on its feet. Kathy interjected. If you know your plan goes against, as you put it, a whole bunch of laws, then how do you expect us to authorize it? Get Congress to pass a bill authorizing the military to assist federal and state law enforcement agency. The bill must have a time limit, 5 years, with a one-time only extension clause for another 5 years, and a kill clause that Congress or the president can activate that that Congress or the president can activate, comma, that terminates the bill if no longer needed. Where'd you come up with this idea? Kathy pointed to Walt, one of his books. Wait, that book hasn't been published yet, Walt exclaimed. Sarah gave me a soft copy. Now I know why. even if it even has the entire bill in the book. Matt turned to Walt. Can I get a hard copy and a soft copy? If it's good enough, we'll use it as is. If not, I'll tweak it so it will be. He paused for a second. You know, if we use this, you won't be able to request military help as sheriff. You'll have to accept the director's position of the Marshal Service, or I'll accept the command position of the Idaho Rangers permanently. What? Several of them said aloud. Walt looked over at Chris and smiled. Chris smiled back. Matt caught the exchange of smiles. Please explain what you two are smiling about. Walt leaned forward and opened his mouth to answer, but Chris coughed loudly. May I, if I may, Walt? Walt nodded and sat back. When Walt and I met with the governor of Idaho and several top state legislatures, there was a couple requirements on their part to get them to pass the bill. To pass the bill creating the Idaho Rangers. First was that Walt would be acting commander until they choose a permanent commandant. Second, if the federal government fell apart after the asteroid and I was no longer a federal agent, I would accept the position as commandant. Third, if within a month of the asteroid passing, no candidate was found for the position, then Walt would accept it permanently. But I have several candidates in mind to take the position, Sarah being my first choice, Walt said flatly. But if you don't enact my bill as written, then I might have to take the position. Who were the others you had in mind, Matt inquired. Second was my dad. As a lawyer, he's an officer of the court. He also has some standing for it. Third was Randolph Cooper, my predecessor as sheriff. He retired to the Boise area, so he was already there. So you really don't want the commandant's position? Matt asked to clarify. No. But I like the idea of it more than that of Chief Federal Marshal, Walt sighed. Heck, I didn't want to be sheriff. I sort of railroaded into it, seeing that Harrison Marston was running for the job, and he was twisted as any crooked politician in D.C. No offense, Matt. Well, you did say any crooked politician. And he was crooked. I arrested him on federal charges, but let the state take him for trial first. And I thought DC had all the drama, Matt chuckled. Then in a serious tone spoke. If you all could get your ideas and reasons typed up for me as soon as you can, I'll look them over and present them to the president. The new pro tem of the Senate. And speaking of your wife, Walt jumped in. When is she going to join us for these briefings? How did you know? She just decided to accept the appointment this morning. You didn't bug the my spunker, did you? Matt stared hard at Walt. Walt just smiled and spoke. I had a long conversation with Governor Pike, and he had Secretary Daniels forward a letter that I wrote on why she. I had a long conversation with Governor Pike and had Secretary Daniels forward a letter I wrote on why she should finish your term. Matt looked a little mad at Walt. If I wasn't so afraid of Sarah, I'd say I hate you. She probably heard you. Chris snipped, and almost everyone in the room cringed, and Walt chuckled. So what took her so long to make up her mind to accept the appointment? Walt asked. She isn't a political game player. She likes to help and get things done, but she hates the lobbyists that used to bug me. That was her biggest problem. Chris snickered. We'll tell Sarah that they're baby molesters. She'll take care of them. Don't laugh about that, Matt snapped. Cindy said she'd claimed they were threatening Karen and she just did her job. Well, we'll have to worry about lobbyists. We outlawed them in the county 6 months ago. That should have made Harrison Marston mad. He couldn't solicit any kickbacks without those. And without those, his other business dealings started falling apart. That would never get through in D.C., Matt sighed, which is why I proposed the capital be moved to a more central area of the country, to a county that has followed our example. That has followed our example. I was thinking Boise, Oklahoma, and in Cameron County, the tip of the panhandle. Walt stroked his goatee. But discussing that is best left until spring. Yes, I think that would be best, Matt agreed. Could I borrow your computer to log on to my conference call with the president? Sure, let me get you set up there. Walt opened a guest login with no access to the main drive. Matt Mitchell might be vice president, but there's no way Walt was going to let him have access to his special files. There you go. Thank you, Matt said, and pulled out his PIV card with access to the Homeland Secure Data Network and stuck it in the reader and logged on. Walt and the others left the room. All right. Well, we're a little over 2 hours in and getting close here. Sarah had driven to the border of the tribal lands in her Suburban, pulling one of the small horse trailers. She had planned on riding to the tribal offices following one of the arroyos that led close to the building. She didn't want to be spotted before she got there, and she wanted to make sure that Don, Jason, and Jeremiah were there first before she rode up. She stopped at a spot approximately 300 yards from the building where she could look, or she could just see over the lip of the arroyo. And anyone looking in her direction would need a good pair of binoculars to see her amongst the brush. She reached into one of the saddlebags and pulled out a padded case. And from that, a pair of Barska Gladiator 25 to 125 zoom binoculars, and scanned the area. There were 14 people standing around talking. She didn't see Don, Jason, or Jeremiah anywhere. Then she heard a motor approaching. She turned around and saw that it was Jason in his Ford Expedition patrol unit. Jeremiah was sitting in the passenger seat and Don was in the back seat. Sarah watched them get out and greet those there. For the most part, things looked friendly. There were a couple of older men that were standoffish, especially towards Don. Sarah gritted her teeth. Then most of them went inside, and Jason was one of those who stayed outside. Sarah put the binoculars away. In the padded case that she had hung from the saddle horn and placed it back in the saddlebag. Taking a breath, she nudged Ajax forward, up and out of their royal, and headed towards the building. Keeping through the tree line, she was able to get within 20 yards before she was spotted. It was Jason that spotted her only because he was looking for her. "Hey, Jason," Sarah said as she eased Ajax to a stop. "I saw a couple cold shoulders when you guys said hello." "Yeah, a couple of the old leaders are still holding a grudge against Don for liking Walt so much." Hmm. Yeah, I hope they warm up a bit when they learn what's going on about the rest of the world. So do I, Jason. They need to grow up before they get the tribe killed. Do they have power for the building? Yes, it's solar and the projector is working. Good, Sarah responded and smiled. Now I don't have to use the portable power supply in Walt's projector. She reached back and pulled her laptop bag out of one of the saddlebags and slung it over her shoulder and dismounted Ajax. Tying the reins to a post, Sarah took another deep breath and nodded to Jason to head in. In the multi-purpose room where they were holding the meeting, Jeremiah was addressing the tribal leaders already, going over some of the information about the damage that has been caused so far and the starting of people to evacuate the cities and the troublesome groups that were following them. While he was talking, Jason, with the help of the tribal constable, set up a table with a connection to the projector and sound system. When it was ready, Jason waved Sarah over to hook up her laptop. When she was all set, she nodded to Jason, who in turn nodded to his father. Nodded to let his father know. Boy, my tongue is twisted up here. I had another someone come in and leave real quick. When she was all set, she nodded to Jason, who in turn let his father know they were ready. When Jeremiah introduced Sarah, when Jeremiah introduced Sarah, he did by using, hang on, that's going to be a lowercase. He did by using her maiden name, not mentioning that she and Walt were married. And thank her for gathering the information they were going to see and hear and see. Sarah got up and thanked the tribal for allowing her to speak to them. This brought some smug replies from some of the older leaders who did not recognize she was just playing them. Then she gave a brief outline of the events leading up to the videos she was going to share with them. Then she started the first video. When the shooting began, one of the older leaders spoke out, "You just started killing them." Sarah chuckled loudly and said, "You missed it, didn't you? Let me back it up and play it in slow motion so you can see what really happened." Sarah started again in slow motion. Just before she drew her pistol, she stopped it on the frame that showed the biker about to shoot her. "As you can see, they drew first and were going to kill me." Then she advanced the video one frame at a time till it showed her fourth shot. "As you can see, we waited until the last moment to shoot." She played the rest of the video, stopped at certain parts as requested by the tribal leaders and the constable, who verified the tribal constable who verified that what Kathy said on the video. And verify what Kathy said on the video. Before Sarah played the interrogation video, she explained what Candace had said about the interrogators. Well, Jason passed out Ziploc bags and paper towels to the indignation of several of the leaders. By the end of the video, two of those had used the bags. After the interrogation video, Sarah asked them if they wanted to see the autopsy video. They all passed. She chuckled loudly enough for all to hear. Even the venture crew and their parents wanted to see it so they could know that that scumbucket was actually dead. Then she put the laptop away as she gave them a sanitized briefing of the information they were getting from DHS. She left out that most of the Navy was up by Alaska, along with most of the Army and some of the Air Force, and a lot of Marines. She did let them know about the scandal with most of the refugee towns being placed too low in elevation and being flooded out, as well as several of the government bunker sites being hit by meteorites. The full extent she kept to herself. When she was done with that, Sarah let them know that Walt had been asked to be head of the U.S. Marshal Service. She thought that shocked the older tribal leaders more than anything else. Then she dropped her biggest bombshell on him. Gentlemen, I'm here under my own volition. As such, the request that I'm about to make comes from me and me alone. In fact, the two people involved with my request have asked me not to make it. But as you saw in the videos, I'm not one to stand by while innocent people are threatened or blackmailed or otherwise put upon by those who think they have the power to do so because they believe there is no longer law and order. Sarah paused and stared hard at each of the tribal leaders. Am I making myself clear? Before the others could speak, Jeremiah stood. I believe you're saying you will not stand by while an injustice is being forced on somebody. That's one way of putting it. Sarah smiled her evilest smile. I hereby request that this council rescind the blood oath and restrictions on Walt. I need to put commas in there. Comma there and comma there. That's a period. And this one here. Is that correct? There we go. On Walt Rogers, and also all the restrictions on Don Redhawk forever. Why should we do this thing? One of the older tribal leaders that Sarah had pegged earlier as one of the most biased and prejudiced asked, what is it to you? I am Sarah Ahern Rogers. Walt and I got married 6 days ago after a year and a half of after waiting a year and a half to do it. Jeremiah calls me his daughter, and I call Dawn sister. Don and I both love Walt. If something happens to me while I'm eliminating the scum of the earth that would rape your wives, your daughters, your granddaughters, and even your sons and grandsons, she took a breath. If I get killed protecting you, I want Don to marry Walt. She held her hand up quickly. As such, I am respectfully asking you to do this for me so I can do what I need to do without the stress of Walt being left alone if I die. Please do this. She slowly lowered a hand. The oldest tribal leader spoke gruffly. Child, you have no standing here to make such a request. You insult me even speaking of it. You will leave now. And he tossed a water from his glass on her. Jason grabbed the constable's arm and pulled him towards the door. We need to step outside. Sarah lowered her head, hiding her face with the brim of her hat as she shifted her weight slightly to her right foot, picked up her left foot, then she slid her left foot up behind her right with the spur and pulled it around and brought it up to her left hand. She took hold of it, pulled back the corner of the duster. She lowered her foot to the floor. She brought the corner of the duster up in front of her, and as she did so, the Glock G29 SF in her right shoulder holster came into view. Sarah tucked the corner of the duster into her gun belt and then slid it back, catching the left side of the duster with it to expose a second revolver in a cross draw holster and a third holster on her hip, and finally the Glock G29 in her left shoulder holster. Sarah, Don spoke slowly and scared. I tried the carrot. Now they get the stick. Jeremiah, outside. You too, Don. The tribal council looked in panic as Don, Jason, Jeremiah, and the constable hurried out the door. I request one more time that you do as I have politely. Hang on. Politely asked of you, Sarah said as her voice got tighter with each word. Then lightning death will speak to you with so much fire and brimstone that the great spirit will run and hide for 1,000 years. Will you please? Never, shouted the old leader as he slammed his hand down on the desk with a loud crack that echoed in the room. The gunshot sounded like a continuation of the hand hitting the table. It was followed by the cry of pain from the old man. At first, one would have thought that his hand bounced off the table from the force of the blow, but the splinters of the tabletop protruding from his palm from his told a different story. Hang on, from his palm told a different story. Nobody saw Sarah draw. Nobody saw her shoot the bullet that shattered the plywood, shattered the wooden tabletop. Nobody saw her reholster the gun. Nobody saw her move at all. Sarah slowly rose her head so she could see the eyes of the council. She stared hard at him for several seconds and opened her mouth to speak. But as soon as she did, one of the younger council members spoke up. Black Elk's opinion is bigoted, racist, and out of touch with the world of today. His view is not that of this council. He stood up. I, Dakota Gray Eyes, moved that Saga Black Elk be removed from this council at once. You can't do, Saga Black Elk started but was interrupted. I second the motion, another young member shouted. I move that we vote on it now, a third spoke up. I second that motion. Hang on. The same young member shouted again. All in favor of removing Saga Black Elk from the council? Yuma Spotted Bear asked reluctantly. The three youngest of the 9 members shouted, aye. 4 others half-heartedly, aye. Saga Black Elk and the other old member remained silent. Those who opposed to remove Saga Black Elk from the council, Yuma Spotted Bear inquired. Saga Black Elk started to speak when he noticed that the other member still remained silent with his arms folded across his chest. Saga looked at where the splinters in his hands for several seconds, then turned and walked towards the door. When he exited the room, the others returned inside. Yuma spoke again. With no dissenting votes, Saga Blackout has voluntarily withdrawn from the council before the council could finalize the vote. Dakota Black Gray Eyes spoke. Sarah Rogers, how long were you thinking that Don should have to wait to see if you would be killed? That's the rub, Sarah started to explain. I originally thought I would have to serve as lightning. I see now it could be much as 5, 6, or maybe longer. That is, if the takers, the stealers, and those that don't want to work for a living grow in number and keep attacking those that do grow and raise their own food. The best way to stop me from having for a lightning death is for all good people to work together and put aside their petty gripes. She stopped with her mouth still half open. I take it there's more, but you're not sure we are ready to hear it? Yes, it is a sensitive topic. It has to do with the survival of the human race. Someone else just came in. All right, go ahead. He went out. I take it there's more, that you're not sure we're ready to hear it. Sarah nodded yes. It is a sensitive topic. It has to do with survival of the human race. There will, hang on. There will be what is called a winter die-off. The lack of food, clean water, medical supplies, and heat for homes and the like will cause mass deaths around the world. This has to do with the number of survivors. If there are too few survivors, and if we are to survive as a species, as a healthy species, we all may have to have multiple spouses to create a diverse gene pool that can sustain the human race. Dakota, Human, and the other council members paled. I know this idea goes against social norms, religious beliefs, but there is something we all need to think about just in case it's needed. And then there are other concerns that I'm not allowed to go into just yet because of the possibility of causing undue panic. But you will let us know as soon as you can? Dakota asked. If it is necessary. If it is not, then there's no need to discuss it, Sarah said. Walt or I will let you know if he's allowed to come out here. Ah, yes, of course. I move that we nullify the blood oath pact that barred Walt Rogers from coming on tribal lands and prevented him and Don Redhawk from seeing each other. I second the motion. Another member agreed. I move we vote on it now. Yet another spoke up. I second the motion for vote. The older member said, surprising to the younger ones. We need to move forward or we will die in the past. I understand that now. Yuma nodded. All in favor of the motion before the council? All members present raised a hand and said aye. The vote is unanimous for the motion, Yuma said. Then Dakota spoke up. We are now a seat short of a full council. He looked to Yuma for answer to the unspoken question. Yuma sat back and rubbed his chin. While he was doing this, Sarah had an idea. Begging the council's pardon, she began. I know it is not my place, being a white outsider and all, but I would think having a mystic woman on your council. I am not a mystic woman. I am not a shaman, a spiritual seer, or anything else of the sort. Damn it! Dawn ended yelling, and in doing so, she crossed her arms across her chest in front of her. And when she said "sort," she uncrossed them like an umpire calling a runner safe at home. When Dawn did that, Sarah launched herself backwards at the tables the council was sitting at and rolled several times until she hit one. She actually kicked it for a dramatic effect and groaned loudly. Ow! Watch it with those mystic blasts. They hurt, Sarah said as she quickly got to her feet. Dawn looked down at her hands in surprise. Dawn's, hang on, got it mixed up here. Then her mouth slowly opened. She looked at Sarah, who quickly winked at her and took a couple steps forward. Stop that, Dawn shouted and pointed at Sarah, who appeared to fly backwards and land on one of the tables. All right, Sarah shouted back. I'm sorry, I take it back, she said as she climbed off the table and turned her back to her. I withdraw my suggestion. No, Dawn shouted and stomped her foot. Sarah launched herself in the air over the table and the members seated there and came crashing down behind them. As Sarah struggled to get to her feet, she said, Ow! I said I was sorry. I would love to serve on this council, but not under some delusion that I am a mystic woman. She raised a hand with the index finger pointed towards the ceiling, and everyone ducked. Hang on. Don't worry, she can only hurt me, I think. Sarah limped around the table. She only has the powers to expect the spirit of the fallen angel that is using me as its service host. What do you mean? Dawn asked. The spirit within me was cast out of heaven with Satan for rebelling against God's plan for us. 15 years ago, she rebelled against Satan and has been trying to earn God's forgiveness. She has been helping me ever since. How else do you think that I could be so fast? How come none of the bikers' bullets ever got close to me? For some reason, you have the power to affect her, and since she is in me, both of us are affected. Oh, Dawn said in confusion and said in a confused and unsure voice as she looked down at her hands again. Sarah turned back to the council. Forget what I said about having about magic and mystic stuff. Dawn is very passionate about her people. You might want that passion on the council. Then Sarah turned and limped to the table where her laptop bag was and picked it up. If you do, I'll make sure she gets all the updates we get, and I'll ask the vice president if she can join in the DHS briefings as the tribal representative. Sarah limped to the door and pushed it open, headed over to Ajax. She untied his reins, grabbed hold of the saddle horn, stopped and rested for a second before pulling herself up into the saddle. Once seated, she turned Ajax around to ride off and noticed everyone staring at her. 45 minutes later, oh, someone's in here. Hey, hi. Oh, it's Dave. Hey, Dave, how's it going? 45 minutes later, Jason, Don and Jeremiah caught up to Sarah's Suburban as she headed back to the ranch. Jason tapped the siren and yelp button twice, and Sarah pulled over. She walked stiffly back to Jason's patrol vehicle with a half-hearted smile on her face as everyone bailed out. I'm sorry I hurt you, Don said quickly. You didn't. My boot slipped when I jumped over the table and I landed on my bum. Sarah replied. You lied to me? Don asked in disbelief. Sort of, Sarah said as she dug the toe of her boot into the gravel at the side of the road. I told the storyline of one of Walt's books. I'm sorry I freaked you out, but did it work? Are you on the council? Jeremiah started laughing. Don and Jason looked at their father like he was on drugs or something. Then he laughed all the harder. Sarah smiled because she knew that he got what she did. Dad, are you all right? Jason asked. Oh, yes, I'm fine. Jeremiah calmed his laughter down to a chuckle, then got very serious. But you can never, ever let anyone, and I did. We have to go along with the deception, or we'll all be in big trouble with the council and the tribe now that Don is on the council. Then Jason and Don realized what Sarah did. You played the council? Don exclaimed. I had to get you on there. Walt said that we are going to need them on board with the recovery plan, whatever we wind up doing, Sarah explained. Well, the council wants Walt to take the marshal position, Jeremiah said. Really? Sarah asked in surprise. Yes, they figure that if Walt is the head of the marshal service, then he will be able to help the county more. And now that the current council has reversed the old council from 8 years ago, he might offer more help to the tribe as well, especially with Don on the council, Sarah asked. Yeah, I think that may have something to do with it, Don said in a tone that was hard to read. Well, why don't you follow me to the sheriff's office and to talk to Walt, Sarah suggested. Yeah, there are a couple other things I need to tell Walt as well. And I need to talk to him too, Jeremiah added. Sarah pulled up in front of the sheriff's office just as Kathy, Joseph, Candace, and Kurt were coming out of the door. She honked her horn and continued to where there was enough room for her to park her Suburban and horse trailer. She quickly got out of the Suburban and hurried back to talk to them before they left. By the time she limped back to where they were, Jason, Don, and Jeremiah were with them, and Jason was making introductions. But he stopped talking when he saw the looks on their faces, and all four, and noticed they were all looking at Sarah. He struggled to hide his smile. Are you all right? Kathy asked Sarah. Yeah, I slipped on a slick spot and landed on my bum. She smiled weakly. But I will feel much better after I take a long soak in the tub. Candace chuckled. Been there. How many names did Walt give you, Sarah asked Joseph. He gave us 5 names. We're going to go to the high school gym to talk to them now. Sarah nodded. I hope they work out for you. We need to get all the refugees working. Well, after Walt arrested the pedophile, more starting to show real interest in getting work for food, Deputy Green said as he came down the steps. Walt's getting ready to talk to the 5 cops you told him to hire. Daniel rubbed his hands together. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to find a couple that have worked admin as well. Sarah added. Oh, that would be so nice, Daniel said as he headed towards his SUV patrol vehicle. Sarah turned back to Joseph. Have you thought about talking to any that came with Elizabeth? Kathy snorted. That group is going to have a tough time adjusting. Yes, they will, but spanking Elizabeth will motivate them to getting their fingernails dirty, Candace chuckled. You didn't see the eyes of the two that came in with her while you were spanking her. They've been spreading the word around their group and elsewhere. But if any want to work and have the skills we need, I'll talk to them, Joseph said. And if anyone want to be a Marine, I'll talk to them, though it would probably be the kids. I'll ask them when I see them later, Sarah said. But I want to get in there and meet the new deputies. Sarah left the 7 to finish talking and hurried up the steps into the office. Inside, Sarah saw Walt sitting on the corner of his desk, Sal leaning against the door jamb going to where the cells were at, and Chris standing in front of the 5 Leos, law enforcement officers, 4 men, 1 woman, explaining that despite Walt's youthful appearance, he has the ears of the president, vice president, and secretary of Homeland Security. Sarah and a what sort of smile? He has a smile going across his face. And not an evil smile, not a sinister smile. Oh, geez. Yes, and a smile flashed. I know. Hang on, let me go. A slight amused smile flashed. It's still not the right word. A slight amused smile flashed across ACR. Across his face. Of all the rules you will learn, Rule 5 is the most important. That is, don't piss Sarah off. Ever. They looked at Chris like he was joking, and Chris shook his head. Remember the video you were showed at the school about the bikers? That was Sarah. But that was Photoshop, the former college district officer said. No one is that fast or accurate. Seeing the look on Sarah's face, Chris dove across the floor. Sal spun around the door jamb and closed the door. Walt jumped up with both hands out in front of him, saying, "Don't shoot him." The officer slowly turned his head around, and a croaking sound exited his throat as his eyes did their best imitation of Roger Rabbit's eyes popping out. It was all Sarah could do to keep a straight face. She tilted her head forward to lower the brim of her hat to cover most of her face, then brought her hand up, her hand up to cover the rest, and shook her head. Oh, so slowly. She started taking deliberate steps, trying to hide the soreness in her buttocks as she walked towards where Chris had been standing. "Chris, a bottle of water, please." Sarah spoke smoothly. She stopped at Walt and whispered, "I get to soak in the tub tonight." And then she shucked off her duster and handed it to him. She flashed Walt a quick smile and a wink and turned to the 5 Leos with a deadpan face. They all squirmed a bit, seeing all the weapons she carried. Gentlemen, someone else just came in. Hey, please type hi and give us a thumbs up. Gentlemen, things work a bit differently here in Idaho. Even more so now that over 70% of the U.S. population has been wiped out. A great deal of that was due to crooked politicians moving the relocation cities to areas below the flood lines established for the tsunami waves and tidal run-up. Any of those politicians caught will be tried for murder and then hung. I don't know if you've been informed of the new law enforcement group here in Idaho, the Idaho Rangers. They will enforce the laws just like the old Texas Rangers did. You saw the videos. Murderers, rapists, pedophiles, drug dealers, black marketers are shot on sight by presidential order. You can shoot fleeing felons again. Criminals get one warning only to surrender, and then they get shot. We shoot to kill. Sarah looked over and nodded to Chris. She knew he'd seen her do the water bottle stunts before with Danny. Chris stood a little in front and to the right of Sarah, facing the same way as Sarah, just as Danny did, so he couldn't see Sarah's face. Then he held the bottle out in front of Sarah. After several seconds, he let go. Walt swore the bottle didn't move this time as it landed on top of the hexagon barrel of. Leos all jumped and exclaimed their surprise at Sarah's speed. "Dang," Chris said softly, "that was faster than the other time." I'm sorry," the district officer stuttered. The next microsecond, her pistol was holstered and Sarah's hand was around the bottle. "Gentlemen, we need your help. Now, one of you," Sarah looked at the college district officer, "has family up in New Meadows. One is Mr. Rourke's brother-in-law. I understand that 3 of you will be staying at the fort." "The fort?" a couple asked. Sarah smiled. "That's what the adventure crew calls Mr. Rourke's shop with the big loft. It looks like a regular cinder block building, but it is bulletproof." She looked over at one of the Leos. "That leaves you finding a place to stay." Sarah stopped speaking and turned to Walt. "Any ideas yet?" "Still looking." What about Indian Valley, Kathy? Kathy could use the help that puts another deputy down in the line. They could stay in Old Man Brooksby's farm for the winter. "Well, you better catch up to Joseph and clear it with him." "Right." She tossed the bottle to Chris, grabbed her duster from Walt, and ran out the door. She yanked open. Hang on. She yanked open the front door and stopped. "Great, you're still here," she said as she stepped out. Sarah talked to Joseph about having Deputy Douglas Peters' family stay at the Brooksby place for the winter so he can help Kathy cover issues along the county line. Before Joseph could answer, Kathy shouted, "Yes, he can. Yes, his family can." Joseph looked at her with a not too happy stare. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I need the help if I will figure it out. I need the help should something happen, Kathy explained. It'd be good to have an extra badge already down there, and he can help teach the other refugees about gun safety and use. Joseph Nutt is his approval of that part. We'll let's get over to the gym and talk to our prospective workers. Who else? There was someone else with them. Hang on. Let me go back up here. Let me hang on. I need to open that back up. Put that on there for a second while I scroll up and check something out. At the Candace and Kurt. Okay, that gives me the ability to do something here. All right, I got to put another comment in here. Kurt asks, comma, all right, so I can take that and remove that there. Kurt asks, what did they come here in? Hang on. RV TRAIL trailer. Just a car. Hang on, where did green go? Hang on. He's okay. The other deputy's gone. Set up. Oh, shoot. Oh, what's the name of the place? Dang it. I have the answer to the problem here. I gotta, okay. Gotta do my web search again. There it is, Indian Valley. Dun, 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 map. There we go. Okay, Indian Valley and Alpine. Okay, hang on. Now let's see what I see over here. Alpine store, Alpine there. All right. Oh, a bunch of housing around here. Let's see what the housing situation looks like there. Okay, yeah. I think that'll work. All right. That's how I do some of my research, folks. Set it up. Store area. Set. And they would love to have the EX Extra Pro protection there. See, hang on, get back there. See, Kathy said. There we go. Oops, gotta put a space in there. There we go. Got it. So now, so Kathy made the poofah of jumping up and saying they could stay there before Joseph had anything to do with it and had a chance to answer. Kurt came to the rescue, basically asking, all right, did they come in an RV, a car? You know, what did they come in? Did they have something, a place to live? You know, it just needs to be towed somewhere or driven somewhere. And so, yeah, so so they're going to find out what they came in, what sort of trailer, RVs or what they came with, so they can find a place other than that one house, Brisby's old house, because Joseph wants to use that as part of as part of the military setup for the new military base, new Marine base. Okay. All right. Sarah then offered to give Jeremiah and Don a ride back to Bear Cave if Jason would let Walt know that it was okay for uh, to stay. Um, Brooksby Place or at the Alpine Store, STO, if they had TRAV or RV for the winter. Yeah, I think that's going to be, that's all right. Jason was grateful for the offer because he had some work to do to catch up on. On the way to Bear Cave, Jeremiah asked Sarah to wait around while he talked to the families in the cave. When they got there, Jeremiah called everyone together and explained to them what happened at the town meeting, omitting Sarah's faking Don's powers. Many were happy with the mindset of the council. The mindset of the council. All right. Many were happy that the mindset of the council was changing, that younger members had finally broken with old archaic dogma. Still, there were several families that didn't want to go back just yet and wanted to keep the supplies at the cave because they were better protected there. A couple of the tribal members asked Sarah what her opinion was on the current events and what she thought about the tribe's future. She told them that the factors were very much in flux, but in a couple months she should have a better idea, and by springtime she would have a very good idea what would be needed to do for everyone. Will be needed to do for everyone. What needed to be done for everyone and for what, that's what's missing, and for what everyone needed to do for the tribe as a whole. There we go. Much better. All righty. So, all right, continue on. I don't have too much farther to go, I believe. All right. When Walt got home for dinner, Mark reported that Butch, the head ranch hand, had found a couple more dead cows. Butch said that they had signs of ash in their lungs. He has a group from Redoubt Village helping him to butcher them up. The big dehydrators are on full, going 24/7 because some of the cattle had died from fright before the asteroid arrived. Butch said that they had been hanging for 12 days and were now ready to process. They will start making tallow tomorrow and cold pack canned beef in every canner we can find. Walt nodded, and he had helped gut and hang some of them from the refrigeration cargo containers. In one of the refrigeration cargo containers. Your grandparents have taken the freeze dryers. They have been cooking. Time's running out here on me quick. They have been cooking hamburger meat all day. And then once it's cooked and well drained, to quote Mom, they loaded it in the deep freezers to chill it, then into the freeze dryers. Thomas came up with the idea to use freeze-dried meat as payment for those refugees that needed to work for food. Oh, and Butch said he's making a couple big solar dehydrators to make more beef jerky quicker. So as long as the sun is shining, One of your mom's lab assistants came up with the idea and design. Walt smiled. I have a feeling they will be giving us all sorts of ideas on ways to do things better. Then Walt realized he hadn't seen Sarah yet. Dad, has Sarah gotten back yet? Yes, about 30 minutes ago. She limped upstairs saying she was going to soak in the tub for an hour or two. Limped? Walt asked with sudden concern with a sudden wave of concern that swept over him like a tsunami. Yeah, she said she slipped and bruised her ego. Mark chuckled. Reminds me of your mother sometimes. I might not be down for dinner, Walt said as he hurried up the stairs. Now you remind me of me. Or now you sound like me. Walt and Sarah were lying in bed thinking of talking when his sat phone rang. He picked it up and looked at the caller ID, then answered it on speaker by accident. Captain Jackson, how are you this evening? Before she could answer, a female hang on, I need to change this. I copied this from the other one, where the other side of the conversation of it. Before, got to do this right here. Control C. Could answer. Sarah said, babe, this better be important. We're doing good, Sheriff. We're wondering if do you have a Deputy Parker Lane? Captain Kimberly Jackson replied, and I'm gonna. Yeah, this is too complicated. The replying ask. Yeah, yes, I do. Did he and his family make it from Tempe? Did his family from Tempe make it there? Yes, they did, and they're doing fine. A voice in the background could be heard crying with happiness. Can you let them know that Desiree is here with me and she's okay and is transferring into my SOG? Of course I will. Sounds like Desiree. Hang on. This is like the next step. Hang on. Sounds like Desiree is very happy. Yes, she is very happy to hear about her family. Well, I'm so glad I can make her day. Sheriff, could you do me a big... that's not supposed to be a capital A. If I can, will you personally tell Cammie Lane that Juby Chan remembers her, and I'm very happy she and her family made it out okay. Walt chuckled. Absolutely. Hang on. I got to switch this around here. That goes over there. Walt chuckled. Really, anything else? If she hasn't met your fiance, please introduce her to Cammie and let Cammie know that there are superheroes up there too. I am not a superhero. I got to change it because this is the other side. Shouted at the phone. Lightning Death, I've seen your videos. I may be known as Juby Chan the Ninja Girl and can grab arrows out of the air, but you stand up face to face with heaven devils and put them down. You're my idol. What? Sarah, Captain Moore here. Sack Davy said that you and my fiance have a lot in common. I'm sure he can get you the videos of her. Your fiance? When are you two getting married? Sarah asked, a little less annoyed now. We were going to get married Saturday like you and Sheriff Rogers, but we decided to postpone our wedding till my father comes with a supply drop, Kimberly said. Your father, Colonel Jackson. I understand now. Wait, it's your wedding that Mary and Kathy are going to. Yes, but you can't let my dad know I'm a Marine. I want to surprise him. Okay, but only if you call me Sarah, not Lightning Death. It's a deal, Sarah. And Sheriff, thank you for the great news about the lanes. My pleasure, Captain. I'll see you at the next intel briefing. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, Sarah and Walt said together. And we're caught up to chapter 3. All right, so we're going to start in here at chapter 3. And that'll be tomorrow morning. And in a little bit here, in about 45 minutes, approximately, I'll be going live with Shadow Scout Swede, Sofa Survivalist, World Survivalist, and UK Urban Prepper. So we'll be getting that there going here in just a minute. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, and I will hopefully see you guys over there. All right. Take care.